Hi learners, so the first module in our grade 11 book deals with mechanical analytical. This chapter or module basically teaches you everything about mechanical drawings. It deals with mechanical components, which we will have a look at this moment. So I'm going to go through some machine components, which later on we will identify on a page, and we will put them together and drawing it as an assembly. Let's have a look. So the first one is a shaft. Now the shaft refers to the A component here that runs right through. If you don't know what a shaft looks like in reality, I'm going to give you a 3D or a pictorial view of the shaft looks like. So it can either look like that triangle part there that has a threaded portion, but it's basically a cylindrical shape of a metal component where a wheel turns around. So let's give a 3D version of it. This is basically what a shaft looks like. It has a threaded section there where a nut and a washer can be turned on, but it's mostly just round like that, and there are various components that can be put onto the shaft. It is used as an axle for different types of wheels, or flanges, or pulleys that we rotate around this shaft section or shaft component. And we look at the second component, which is a key. Now key normally is a slot in a shaft, and I want to take the key and the keyway, because the keyway is basically the track or the slot, and the key is the little metal component that slides in that slot. Now you can see here that little parallel section there is the keyway, and this is a 2D version of it, and that semicircle component there is a key that fits into that slot over there. Now you can of course have a square or rectangular shaped key slot with key as well, and I want to show you a 3D version of what a key and a key slot looks like. So here we have a shaft, and in the shaft we have like a track, an insert into the shaft, and that rectangular piece of metal is the key that slides into the keyway in the shaft, but it only goes half down of that thin key, because the other half goes into either what we call a pulley here or a wheel. So half it locks inside on top, and half it locks inside at the bottom, and that function is for rotation. Once the shaft rotates, it allows to take momentum from the shaft through the key, locking that wheel or pulley, and allowing this pulley to turn at the same time when the shaft is turning. That is a 3D version. This is what it looks like when it's fully inserted. It lies halfway into the shaft and halfway into the pulley or the wheel on top. That's from the front side, half, and that allows for momentum to carry from the shaft onto the pulley. Our next component is going to be a nut. Everybody is familiar with a nut. It normally has a hexagonal shape, which means it's a six-sided. That is the nut over there. You only see 1, 2, 3 sides, but there are 3 sides on the other side as well, which basically makes it 6 sides. And I want to show you what a nut looks like. At the same time, I'm going to take the washer, which is always accompanied by a nut. So the washer is the contact point, or the contact between the actual component which you fasten and the nut itself. So there is a washer and the nut will always go hand in hand. And I want to show you a 3D version of the different sorts of washers and the nut and how it works in tandem. Here we have the washer, with the washers on its own. You get different types of washers, as you can see here, with different sizes for the specific shaft that you are going to be putting this in. So the bigger the threaded part or the shaft, the bigger the hole on the inside would be, and each one has a specific purpose. There is a washer with the hexagonal nut that we looked at in the 3D format, and these both go hand in hand. There you can see there's the shaft part of the bolt, and that's a bolt, the head of the bolt and the body of the bolt. That is the threaded portion there, that's the non-threaded portion, and these two are always accompanied by each other. So you put in a washer first and you insert a nut after the washer, so that the nut does not make immediate contact with the component which you are basically tightening. Then we're looking at component E. It refers to a web or a rib. It might not appear here, but it will appear in this component here. This is the front cut section, and that's the top part of that here. This is not two separate drawings, but this is the front. This is this front part here, and this is the top of that. This is the top, which is reflected there, and this is the front. So the rib or web, as we call it, is this component here, which is unhatched. That is a support between this circle component here and that circle component there, which reinforces that part over there. What it looks like in 3D format, as I've mentioned, there is an upright component, there is a horizontal component. I want to reinforce this, and there is my triangular wedge, which is also called a web, normally situated perfectly in the middle of things, or it can be called a rib. Right, here the same thing. It holds, there's a circular base, and there is a circular component on top of the base, and to secure that you will put a rib like that against the upright and the lower part, which is the horizontal part of the base. It's normally welded here, and the function is to ensure reinforcement. Ribs can also, or webs can also take other forms of shape, but you will easily identify it as it always is situated in the middle of two main components. And the last component on this page would be the pin. That is basically just a circular pin, very thin, that slides through a hole to secure components to one another. It is very often used in components that rotate around an axle to disallow that certain components come off the shaft. So to show you what a 3D version of a pin looks like, very straightforward component, and that is basically the metal pin that we are looking at. This has flat sides, but you also get them as a cylindrical shape as well. Some of them have sharp points, others will just have two blunt points for specific purposes which they will be used. And that concludes our section. You can, however, look back on all these components, and later on they will be looked at more in detail, and you will be able to identify most of them, if not all. I hope you enjoyed.